Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me on your Thursday morning, afternoon, or evening, depending upon where you are. Today, we're going to explore the trends and leading tools and future direction of JD Edwards Analytics. And as we all know, JDE is a tried and true ERP system, but it's notoriously hard to use for reporting and analytics. So we'll look at the current landscape for analytics and what options are available for JDE customers. So the agenda for today is to provide an intro to analytics and what it means to be data-driven. We'll take a look at the evolution of business intelligence and enterprise analytics throughout the years. We'll compare enterprise analytics to sort of legacy reporting and JDE. We'll take a look at some of the leading analytics platforms. And then we'll cover three approaches to implementing enterprise analytics, and then move on to sort of what's next, what's the future have in store, and some key takeaways before we open it up for questions at the end. Just some housekeeping items. We will make this recording as well as the slides available to you. So you'll have those in case you want to reference it in the future or share it with your colleagues. And if you haven't used Zoom before, there's a little Q&A button in the Zoom panel at the bottom that you can click and type in your questions and be happy to answer them at the end. All right, so let's jump into it. A little bit about myself. My name is David Kettinger, and I currently lead the marketing team at Preferred, but I'm also a huge data nerd, which today's presentation will probably highlight. I've been with Preferred for almost 9 years now and spent most of that time as a data analytics consultant, helping our customers deploy Power BI with our quick launch solution. I actually started using Power BI when it came out back in 2014 while I was in grad school, and also used Tableau and MicroStrategy, and really just fell in love with the art of telling stories with data. So I'm excited to jump on here today and share some of my insights and experiences that I've accumulated along the way. So if you're not familiar with Preferred, we're an enterprise analytics provider that really operates as an extension of your data team. We've been around since 2002, and over the last 23 years or so, we've helped hundreds of customers bridge the gap between complex corporate systems like JD Edwards ERP and the leading analytics and BI technologies. Our quick launch solution, which I just referenced, is really designed for companies who've realized they need to replace their legacy reporting tools and move to a more modern cloud-based data platform. And we help customers really help them remove data silos and automate, complex manual data workflows, and then leverage a proven architecture for integrating JD Edwards with other corporate data sources to really unlock the full picture of what's happening throughout their business. Okay, so moving on, we'll talk a little bit about the origins of analytics and how that progressed through time. So imagine it's ancient Greece, maybe around 300 BC or so, and you're in an Athenian marketplace with philosophers gathering around and debating and analyzing and really just searching for meaning in the world. And among them is this guy named Aristotle, who's a thinker that believes in understanding by breaking complex ideas into parts. And it's a process he calls analysis. This early method of understanding problems by dividing them into smaller pieces really laid the groundwork for what we now call analytics. You can see on this slide here that the root word is analytikos, which means skilled in analysis, and that word is derived from another Greek word, which means to break up or to loosen. So just wanted to highlight that etymology here. And fast forward now to the 19th century, Where another visionary, a guy named Charles Babbage, who's often considered really to be the father of the computer, saw potential in using machines to analyze large sets of numbers for primarily engineering and science applications. And Babbage designed this futuristic thing called the analytical engine, which was really a mechanical machine that was capable of computing and analyzing information. And though he never fully built it out, his ideas really paved the way for a new world where machines could help people analyze data and make better decisions. And so, with the 20th century, businesses began realizing that numbers really told stories, and early companies started tracking profits and losses and costs, and realize that these numbers can be analyzed to understand business health and really predict trends. And then with the 1970s, 1980s, we had the advent of the digital computer, and data analysis really just took off rapidly from there, with applications in finance and healthcare and marketing. Then today, in the modern era, analytics has really evolved into a really an essential field driven by big data and AI and machine learning. And we have these advanced algorithms that can process enormous amounts of data in seconds. And it really just delivers these insights at speeds that must have been unimaginable for Aristotle or Babbage. And analytics is really no longer just about breaking things into parts. It's about harnessing a powerful flow of information within your company to make data-driven decisions. And as this story of analytics continues to evolve and really grows more sophisticated with each generation, I think it's always rooted in this original quest, which is to understand, to predict, and optimize the world around you. So what does it mean to be data driven? Every company and every person makes decisions differently, and the inputs to those are often intuition or gut feel, finances or available resources, technology considerations, maybe customer preferences or demands, and then data. And the term data driven really refers to companies that believe analytics based on information technology, data collection, and data analysis should ultimately lie at the heart of an organization's decision-making process. So these companies realize that to be successful at this, they need to get the right information to the right people at the right time so that they can really transform their data into a strategic business asset. But as we all know, becoming data driven is hard. Why is it so challenging? Why do over 80% of companies' data initiatives end in failure? Well, it's really because it takes multiple factors and pillars to be successful. You need to have the right people and culture in place, technology, domain knowledge and methodologies, as well as time. So we look at these challenges, a lot of companies may lack, business executive support or corporate strategy to execute on these initiatives, or maybe companies are just inherently resistant to change. So they're stuck in their old ways of doing things, and it's hard to get people to change their habits. And then from a technology and domain knowledge perspective, it can be difficult knowing which data sources to access and how, and then how to integrate all that relevant information. A lot of companies struggle with having a lack of data literacy or data skills in order to drive these projects to be successful. And then I think also it's about time. It's really is becoming data driven is a journey, and it takes time, it takes blood, sweat, and tears, and there really is no easy button, which in today's modern society where we're used to getting everything immediately, It's sort of a tough pill to swallow sometimes. So um, moving on here, just like in popular recovery programs, the first step to becoming data driven is really acceptance. So you need to honestly evaluate and accept where you and your company are from a data maturity perspective in order to create a plan to improve and get to where you want to be. And regardless of where you're at today, your goal should always be to continuously work to understand, predict, and optimize your business through data. And so another way to look at this or evaluate where you are from an analytics perspective is through an analytics maturity curve. I think this particular one was introduced by SAP a few years ago. And the basic premise is that as your analytics maturity increases, so will your competitive advantage. And so on the left, you have your diagnostic or your descriptive and diagnostic analytics, which is really what happened and why did it happen. And as you go up in the analytics maturity curve, we have predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics, or what will happen, and then what should we do when it does happen. And then lastly, as you can see on this curve, we have our sort of autonomous systems, which could be generative AI, large language models, self-driving cars, just to name a few. But in the middle of these two groups, there's really this chasm, which many companies struggle to cross over because of some of the things I just mentioned: limited data skills, limited resources, and technology constraints. The way that I like to think about it is, as you can imagine it, like to the left of the chasm is like looking into a rear view mirror, and to the right is like looking at a navigation system. So while it's important to know where we're coming from, it's even more important to know where we're going. And we can use analytics to figure out both of those. All right, so let's take a look at how we sort of evolved from this traditional BI to more of a modern and enterprise analytics um, platform. So when we started on this BI train, it was really led by data experts in IT that were in charge of everything from the data prep to reporting and creating dashboards and visualizations. We had these scorecards and KPIs and fancy nested dashboards, and the scene was really dominated by SAP and MicroStrategy. But what businesses realized that these tools were largely inaccessible to the broader enterprise user base, and that really meant business users were left with these really long wait times in order to get their answers. So by the late 2000s, there was this other wave, which labeled here as self-service analytics, and that was really it was this shift to self-service BI technologies, which were enabled by power users and data analysts to do some data prep and as well as data discovery and ultimately visualize the insights of that data. But this wave wasn't without its challenges either. And when you started to factor in governance into the equation, it was really hard to get the right checks and balances in place to manage this shift in roles, which ultimately led to data silos and dirty data and shadow IT systems. But now we have this new wave of modern enterprise analytics that are really IT enabled and business user centric. So it's sort of combining the best of both worlds from the two previous waves, where you have these self-contained data architectures that really enable non-technical users to autonomously execute sort of full end-to-end analytical workflows. And they're starting to incorporate a lot of AI features like natural language processing and natural language generation, as well as sort of automated insights and a lot of other AI-enabled capabilities. Uh, Also, this wave has challenges as well. Most of those challenges are really revolving around, how do I trust these models? How can I trust the underlying AI algorithms and the calculations and predictions? All right, so let's shift gears a little bit from history lesson to more um, practical concepts. So let's look at the available reporting and analytics platforms for JD Edwards customers. So as you can see on this slide, I use the fundamentals of analysis that I learned from Aristotle here and broke these into two smaller groups. And those groups are these niche solutions for JDE and more general enterprise analytics platforms. So the first are smaller tools that have been built specifically for JD Edwards and or other Oracle ERP systems. These could include, OneView, Hubble, or Reports Now, for example. And the second group are these market-leading enterprise scale solutions that can include Power BI, which now has been rebranded as Fabric. You have Salesforce's Tableau, as well as Click, and some other ones that you're probably familiar with here. But what's the differences? What are the pros and cons between these two groups? So when we talk about legacy JDE reporting, we're really talking about, again, tools that are built for JDE or Oracle ERP and allow users to process and analyze historical data by extracting that information from JD Edwards in order to ultimately gain insights on past performance. Some of the pros here is a lot because they were built for Oracle ERP. They have this application intelligence built into them, and they also can be more cost effective because of the size and scale of the solution. And then for cons here, a lot of them, again, they lack the same investment that these larger technology companies can enable. So that usually leads to limited features and functionalities, as well as it can be harder to find and hire resources that have experience with these super niche tools. So conversely, when you compare that to enterprise analytics platforms, these are broader end-to-end analytics platforms that are enabled by IT departments and augmented by AI in order to empower business users with self-service reporting, advanced analytics like predictive and prescriptive analytics, as well as the capability to really share insights from all of your enterprise data sources. And when we look at the pros and cons of this, the pros are really that because of these, the massive investment that these larger technology companies put into these tools, you get the latest technologies and you get these really enterprise grade features and functionality. But it does have, some downsides, and that is it usually requires more knowledge, and that knowledge could be data skill sets. It could also be business domain knowledge. So it doesn't, a lot of these enterprise platforms don't have that JDE application intelligence built into it. So you have to have people on your team or partners on your team that have this domain knowledge so that they can translate that cryptic JDE data into business friendly and self-service analytical models. And you also have the resource, you need to have the resources and experience to implement these larger enterprise systems in order to ultimately drive adoption. So that gives a little bit of breakdown between the two groups here. And the next slide I wanted to jump into really tracks the Gartner Magic Quadrant for analytics and business intelligence platforms. So many of you are probably familiar with this, but this is an interactive version of the Magic Quadrant that I built using Power BI in order to track the historical trends of these vendors over the years. For those that aren't familiar, Gartner analyzes the all the vendors in the analytics sector and then ranks the top 20 or so based upon their completeness of vision and their ability to execute. And the goal is to be in this upper right-hand quadrant, which they call the leaders quadrant. And as you over the past several years, the leaders quadrant was really made up of three players. It was Microsoft, Tableau, and Qlik. And as I click through some of these, you can see, their positions changed within the leader quadrant, but but it was really, there wasn't any new entries to this quadrant until this year. And I thought this was interesting. So if we shift to 2024, you can see that we have a few new leaders. We have Oracle coming into the leaders quadrant, Google, as well as ThoughtSpot. And you can see there's several others that are very close, including SAP, Pyramid, and Amazon Web Services, to name a couple. And what this tells me is that there's a lot of investment going into this space as companies continue to try to innovate and further their ability to execute on their capabilities. It also tells me that these vendors are starting to minimize the gap between vendors as these companies' technologies start to catch up with the dominant industry trends. So it's been pretty cool to track this movement over the years. Another thing I can do within this report is kind of highlight this trend for specific vendors. So if I click on Microsoft here, hit play, you can see how Microsoft has really grown into this dominant position. So they've been the highest in ability to execute, as well as the highest in completeness of vision for the last 6 years, I think. And they've been in the leaders quadrant for this is like their 17th straight year. So it's been pretty impressive to see this dominance take place. And it's really been driven by a few factors. One is they just have well above average functionality. They also have just massive user adoption. So their community is huge. Constantly people are giving them feedback on what what features to create and implement. It's been fun to be a part of that community. They also have really flexible pricing, which is tough for some of the other vendors to match, as well as their integration with Microsoft 365 and Azure and Teams as well. And then they really just have this really ambitious product roadmap that they execute via this continuous development cycle. So if you've been a part of my Power BI updates sessions, you know that they just constantly crank out new updates throughout the year, which I think a lot of customers appreciate as well. I will make this report available to you. So if you'd like to check this out, I'll provide the link in the slides as well. All right, so how does Gartner, determine who's a leader and who's not a leader? They really look at these core feature sets, some that are mandatory to be a leading enterprise analytics or BI platform, and some that are just sort of common, that are become common and more tools are starting to implement. So the first one you have is just the ability to use data visualizations, and these are these interactive dashboards that allow users to explore the data through the manipulation of these chart images. And then you have reporting, which is really more of like your operational reports or your financial style reports, or you have these like pixel perfect paginated reports that can be scheduled out and burst to large user groups. And then another core feature that's sort of listed as mandatory is the ability to catalog your data in your data analytics assets, so that your users can search that and also that the platform can make recommendations to users. And then moving on, data preparation continues to be a core feature. How do you connect and combine different data sources? How do you create analytical models or semantic models? And then a huge requirement these days is data science integration. So this is, how do you enable the development of data science and machine learning models by citizen data scientists and data scientists that really has this seamless integration with the data layer instead of having to take your data and move it to another ecosystem to do that data science work. And then, of course, governance still plays a big part in these leading tools. You need to be able to track usage and manage how information is secured and shared and promoted. And then another big feature is collaboration. So how are your users able to simultaneously sort of co-create on these analytics projects? Some other common features here include, the ways that AI is being infused in the different layers of these applications, whether that's providing automated insights by looking at your data or doing natural language generation to create these data storytelling narratives. So you could, click a button and have these applications write a narrative that you can send to your management or executive teams, as well as just being able to, ask a simple question, type a few words like the Chat GPT experience, and get answers immediately via these tools. So these are some of the ways that, these are the ways that Gartner is determining who is the leading analytics provider and who's not. So now I wanted to kind of shift gears and talk a little bit about what we see in the JDE analytics space. So this is a diagram that depicts a sort of a common JDE reporting workflow. And really we see this at 99% of their customers before we start working with them. And it really starts by them, the user having to collect data from JDE. And usually this is done via some legacy reporting tool to extract that data from the production database. And then ultimately the users then take that extract and put it into Excel where they process and wrangle the data. Maybe they're creating some calculations or creating some pivot tables. And then they may share that spreadsheet from there, or they may use Excel as a database to connect to enterprise analytics platforms like Power BI, for example, where then the business users can start to analyze this information and use that for decision making. But as you can see in this last picture over here, what happens next week or next month when their manager asks them for the same analysis? Well, they have to go do it all over again and repeat this process, which we all know becomes extremely repetitive and wastes time and money. So the other thing that happens here, other than wasting time and money, is each one of these manual workflows turns into a data silo. So, what happens when, or a lot of these workflows or these reports are created to support a specific business area or answer a specific business question. But what happens when you need to merge, information from different data sets? It becomes really hard to do, and it also becomes really hard to manage this. So what's the better way? How do you eliminate these data silos? Well, you can do that by creating a single source of truth with an enterprise analytics platform where you're bringing all these different business domain areas into one centralized location for analysis. And so if we look at some different approaches to implementing an enterprise analytics platform to JD Edwards, we can tie these different approaches back to data maturity levels. So the first one, this data aware maturity level, really depicts the scenario we just walked through, where you have this sort of extract to Excel and then connect Excel to your presentation layer. And we just mentioned a lot of the downfalls of that technique, so I'm not going to dwell on that. The next one you have is sort of this data proficient to data savvy approach. And this is where, maybe your IT team has created a replicated database or data warehouse and put the JD Edwards data into that database, and then you use that to connect to your enterprise analytics platform. So you can create some data models for for each business area, is what we typically see, otherwise known as a data marts. And so you may have a data set for GL or AP and AR. You might have one for sales and to support your manufacturing or your CRM system. And this is a much better approach than the first one, but it also has some downsides. So it can also be pretty tough to manage this. And it also can be hard to control the sort of the compute resources. So what happens if everybody presses refresh on their data set at the same time? And um, this ultimately can lead to data silos too. What if you need to merge sales information with inventory and manufacturing to create some supply chain optimization analysis? That can be pretty complicated pretty quickly. So that introduces the last approach here, which is more of this data-driven approach. And this is the approach that we've sort of standardized for our quick launch solution, where we're leveraging modern data architectures that are based in the cloud. And this allows you to put all of your corporate data sources into one repository that can be accessed by all of your analytical systems. So without getting too technical here, we create a lakehouse for you, which is basically just a cloud repository for your data. And we use Databricks to process that. And then we connect that to sort of a single enterprise data model that acts as that centralized single source of truth. And then we connect that to whatever tool your business users want to use, whether it's Power BI, Excel, or some machine learning applications. They all can connect to that same trusted, validated enterprise model. Okay. So I mentioned that one of the pros of legacy JDE reporting tools was that they often have JDE application intelligence as opposed to enterprise analytics platforms that require the organization to have and implement this domain knowledge. And this is really important when you look at the complexity of JDE databases. As many of you are probably familiar with, how do I know as the IT data analyst that which 4,000 tables or 80,000 fields are relevant? How do I translate the FO 101 or the MCMCU to business friendly terms that people that aren't JDE experts will actually understand? What's a Julian date, and why are my decimals not, why don't they have decimal precisions, and how do I support fiscal calendars and so on? So this is really because JD Edwards designed as an ERP transactional database and not an analytical database. So you got to be able to translate this in order to come up with a consistent business friendly data model that people can use. And so this this is really what Quick Launch does, is it brings the JDE application intelligence to enterprise analytics platforms so you can have the best of both worlds. So we're helping you merge all of these corporate data sources into that centralized lakehouse or cloud repository. And then we're automating the ETL or data workflows into this centralized enterprise analytics model, which then enables you to have better security and better governance. It also improves data latency, which has become a big factor in making better business decisions. And ultimately, it provides one single source of truth that users can leverage in any tool they want to in order to drive trust and adoption of the analytics platform. So, want to illustrate the value that enterprise analytics solutions can bring to your organization. I really wanted to call on Steve Smith at Washington Corporation. Steve presented with us a few months ago during an enterprise analytics sort of fireside chat presentation that we did. You could find that on our YouTube channel if you're interested in checking that out. But he had a lot of great insights, and I think this particular clip really resonated. We asked him, after modernizing JDE analytics at Washington Corporations, what's been the biggest impact at your company? And this is what he had to say.
One of our companies, our most profitable one. For the very first time, we introduced analytics and Power BI to the executive team. By able to show them the data, we were able to knock down a lot of tradition. Let me tell you, when you can tell a group of executives something that they're not aware of, something that they just know through tradition, you know, they're all on their phones and in the meeting and stuff like that, the phones go down. It's eyes front. Just having the ability to put analytics in front of a group of executives like that and get their attention. Well, that embarked on a first phase year and a half ago, netted $6 million additional revenue a month by just visualizing the efficiency in just one of the stages of the copper mill production. And it's contributed to visibility. So the dashboards that we built, not only the executives go to it they start their day with it, but we have digital displays throughout the mine.
So, I mean, how many of you guys would like to go back to your management team and say that you were able to add $6 million of revenue to the bottom line each month? I mean, that's pretty staggering, and that's just from one company. They're conglomerates, so they have many different companies there, and that's just from one company. You know, providing transparency into business processes and providing data to management that they can use to base decisions on. And so you can see, you know, because this is only one example at one company for Washington corporations, this ROI on their data analytics initiative really can start to snowball quickly. Sorry guys. Let's jump forward to sort of what does the future of JDE analytics look like? So companies continue to adopt cloud, and I don't think that's going to change. You know, as costs decrease and technology advances, security risks are minimized. I think companies continue to move from, you know, on-premise or hybrid models to mainly cloud-based architectures. I think also another trend will be how generative AI experiences like ChatGPT are integrated across the data management and data analytics stacks to become more mature and applicable to business users. I think also business users will just get better at being able to prompt these machine learning models as they understand more business use cases with them. And then similarly, machine learning models will become easier for business users to configure and operationalize and interpret their results so that they can start to create these customized machine learning models in order to predict future outcomes for their business. And then I think also another big trend will be, you know, in today's customers expect personalized experiences that are tailored to their preferences. behaviors and particular needs. And I think customer-centric analytics is really going to be the key way that businesses deliver these tailored experiences by figuring out how they can understand each customer on a deeper level. So I think these are four trends that will continue to evolve for JDE analytics, and something to keep your eye on. And as far as key takeaways, I think as we illustrated in the beginning here, just figuring out how to understand where you and your company are from a data maturity perspective and where you want to go is the first step to advancing on this data analytics journey. And then you need to really figure out how you can evaluate the various analytical platforms that are available to you and which ones will help you get to where you want to be based on strategic goals, resources that are available, as well as technological maturity. And then you need to establish a team of IT, business, and executive champions, as well as trusted partners that can help you guide you on your analytics journey. So before I wrap up, I just wanted to point out a few upcoming online events that we have scheduled in case you're interested. Next week, we have Cheryl Slane from Rockline Industries jumping on to share how they've modernized JDE analytics and reporting with Power BI. She's a very knowledgeable BI professional there at Rockline, and this was a presentation she delivered at InFocus, which I thought was really great. And then we also have a Quest workshop coming up at the beginning of December, where we're going to walk people through how to create interactive JDE sales dashboards with Power BI. So if you're interested in getting hands-on, that's a good opportunity for you. And then if you're in the construction engineering realm, we have a construction analytics session where we look at some different analytical scenarios around profit analysis, job costs, details, and some other ones. So check those out if you're interested. And I'm gonna jump on to questions here. All right, we have, can you share the interactive Magic Quadrant Power BI report? Yeah, I will provide a link to that, like a short link to that in the slides, so that you can just click on it and it'll take you to sort of like an embedded version of that Power BI report in the web. So you can use that if you want to. Somebody else asked, how has Oracle BI trended over the last few years? Well, let's look at it. So Oracle used to really dominate this quadrant years ago. If I click on Oracle here, and then maybe I can zoom in for you all a little bit. Oh, no, that didn't like that. Sorry. Let's click play. So 2011, 2012, you can see Oracle was really up high in the leaders quadrant. And then sort of when that shift to self-service analytics came about, they dropped down. But over the last 5 years or so, they've really made a lot of investments into the Oracle Cloud Analytics platform. And you can see now that for the first time in what 7 years, they're back in the leaders quadrant, which I thought was pretty cool and interesting. So again, you can track Oracle as well as other vendors when you get access to that report. Let's get back to the question slide. Looking over here, what you mentioned metrics layer. What is this, and does Power BI have one? So a metrics layer is this new feature set that a lot of these analytics platforms are introducing, where it's really providing a virtualized layer in your analytics platform to store centralized business calculation. And really, I think this has become important because um, with self-service analytics and Power BI, it's really easy to create these data sets, and everybody can create their own version of what gross profit calculation is, right? So then if you go to a meeting, Jack has one version of the gross profit margin and Jill has another version, but if they're different, then how does the executive know which one's right and which one to trust? So having this metrics layer introduced, I think that the goal is really to reduce these duplicate, inconsistent measures and to minimize this siloed data. So by providing this centralized business calculation layer, you're able to utilize these calculations in your different data sets as well as in other business applications. So I haven't researched this completely yet, but I'm pretty sure Microsoft announced like the Fabrics metrics layer a few months ago, and it used to be called goals, and then and you track those via scorecards. But I know that they're actively developing this new feature, and maybe I could do a follow-up session on this. Let's see. So here's Power BI. Yeah, so this used to be like goals, now it's metrics. If you click on that, you have these scorecards. I believe there's some session they did at one of their conference where that you can see these different metric sets up here now. So it's not just scorecards, and then you can start to utilize those metric sets. So something to keep an eye on as this continues to mature and get developed. Um, Any comments regarding using Azure machine learning or Databricks AI capabilities is preferred? Either into yeah, so I'm not quite sure if this is one of our customers, Craig, but yeah, so we are releasing a quick launch AI engine solution that leverages um, our quick launch model for JD Edwards. And so this is something on our radar, and I'm planning another webinar solely around machine learning and AI. I believe that'll be in January, so keep an eye out for that, and we'll probably be able to elaborate more on this particular question. All right, great. Well, that's all the questions I see out there. So just wanted to say thanks again, everybody, for taking time out of your busy day to join us. I hope you got some insights from today's session, and you got my email on here, so feel free to reach out if you have any other questions about what we talked about. And with that, I hope everyone has a great rest of your week. Bye.